On August 22, 1191, a Crusader army under the command of Richard the Lionheart of England set out from the coastal city of Acre towards the southern coastal city of Jaffa. Following the capture of Acre in 1191, Richard was aware that he needed to capture the port of Jaffa before making an attempt on the city of Jerusalem. The Muslims of the Ayyubid Sultanate, commanded by Saladin, laid waste to Jaffa's fortifications in the summer of 1190 due to its potential importance to the Crusaders. Richard's army that he brought on this campaign consisted of 2,000 mounted knights and roughly 10,000 to 12,000 men-at-arms, spearmen, archers, and crossbowmen. Aware of Richard's movements, the Ayyubid commander Saladin, whose main objective was to prevent the recapture of Jerusalem, mobilized his army in an attempt to stop the Crusaders' advance. The Crusader army marched at a rather slow pace, around 5 to 6 kilometers per day. Richard did this in order to prevent his men from becoming fatigued due to heat exhaustion. Marching for long periods in the hot, blistering Arabian summer sun, as well as being heavily armed, could have led to another disaster for the Crusaders, similar to the massacre at the Battle of Hattin 4 years prior. Richard organized his march with strict attention to detail. He made sure his forces marched along the coastline, with the sea always protecting their right flank from attacks. His army would only march in the morning before the heat of the day, making frequent rest stops, always beside sources of water. He had a fleet of supply ships sail down the coast in close support, which offered a refuge for wounded soldiers. Richard wisely rotated his infantry units to keep them relatively fresh. Though provoked and tormented by the skirmish tactics of Saladin's archers, Richard's leadership ensured that order and discipline were maintained under these difficult circumstances. By early September, Saladin had realized that harassing the Crusaders with hit-and-run skirmishes was not going to stop the Crusader advance. Saladin's army was around 25,000 soldiers. The front of Saladin's army was composed of a variety of skirmishers, both horse and foot, Bedouin, Sudanese archers, and lighter types of Turkish horse archers. Behind these were the ordered squadrons of armored heavy cavalry, Saladin's Mamluks, Kurdish soldiers, and contingents of the emirs and princes of Egypt, Syria, and Mesopotamia. The army was divided into 3 parts, left and right flanks, and a center. Saladin directed his army from beneath his banners, surrounded by his bodyguard and accompanied by his kettle drummers. The morning of September 7th, Richard's forces began moving out of camp. They noticed enemy scouts visible in all directions, indicating that Saladin's whole army was nearby. Saladin realized that he needed to commit his entire army to a full-scale attack. Fortunately for Saladin, the Crusaders had to traverse one of the few forested regions of central Palestine, the woods of Arsuf, which ran parallel to the seashore for more than 12 miles. The woodland would mask the disposition of his army and allow a sudden attack to be launched. Saladin gave the order for his entire force to advance forward and attack the Crusaders.
Forward march!
Upon seeing Saladin's forces emerge from the surrounding woodlands, the Crusaders formed up into a defensive formation with their backs to the sea, infantry at the forefront, with archers and crossbowmen right behind them protecting the mounted knights and baggage trains.
Form a column! Line up! Close ranks! We will fight with courage! Close ranks! May God protect us! We cannot Never break ranks!
And now let's take a moment to appreciate the sponsor for today's video, Surfshark VPN. With their support, it makes videos like these possible. Surfshark is a virtual private network which keeps your online identity safe by encrypting all of the information sent between your device and the internet. This keeps your personal data protected from big companies or cyber criminals. Most importantly, Surfshark's VPN swaps the real location of your device with a new one by changing your IP address. This way you can virtually travel to any country around the entire world. Surfshark allows you to access and unblock content libraries and streaming services from other countries like all of the Netflix, Hulu, and even HBO libraries. Surfshark's clean web feature blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, allowing you to surf the web safely. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it out for free. And most importantly, by using Surfshark, you're supporting our awesome channel and allowing us to make quality historical content for your entertainment. Check out my link in the video description now. Saladin's forces began their attack by firing volleys of arrows into the Crusader ranks, aiming to lure the Crusaders into charging his forces, and thus leaving them vulnerable from the safety of their defensive formation. Many Muslim horse archers opted to dismount their horses in order to be able to fire more arrows with their light bows.
Keep your aim low! Hit the middle!
As the battle dragged on, Saladin's men continued to barrage the Crusaders with volley after volley of arrows, causing casualties to stack up. Richard would not allow the Hospitaller heavy-mounted knights at the rear guard to break formation and give pursuit, as he knew it would expose the rest of his army and believed it is exactly what Saladin had wanted.
اخترقوهم كلوا حديد.
While continuing to loose arrows, the Muslims would then remount their horses and continuously charge the Crusaders' defensive formation, looking to open up gaps that could be exploited.
On your command! Forward! Forward!
However, the Crusader lines were disciplined and well defended, and they did not break. Out of nowhere, the Hospitaller Knights at the rear of the army broke ranks and charged the Muslims head-on. Witnessing this, the commander of the Hospitaller Knights, Master Garnier, gave the order for his Hospitaller Knights to charge the Muslims. Within seconds, nearby Crusader soldiers began to break ranks and charge in unison.
Attack! Hack them down! May God protect us! Charge! For valor! For his lordship! To honor! For glory!
It was not certain as to why the Christian Hospitaller Knights at the rear broke formation and charged the Muslims. It's likely that they were enraged by seeing their fellow soldiers being picked off by Muslim archers and could no longer sit idle and wait for the same faith to follow them.
Forward! To the ends of the earth!
The mounted heavy Christian knights smashed into the Ayyubid ranks with their lances and swords, cutting them down swiftly. Even Richard himself personally fought in the midst of the action. The Christian knights had routed most of Saladin's army, and now had encircled Saladin's main force, where Saladin himself was protected by his heavily mounted Mamluk warriors. Knowing they were outmatched, slowly began to fall back. The Crusaders had launched a well-timed counterattack, causing heavy casualties to Saladin's army. Now scattered and disorganized, many of his Muslim soldiers broke ranks and began fleeing the battlefield. Saladin was able to reform most of his army and safely order a retreat up the forested hillside of Arsuf. Richard opted to not give pursuit, as his men were completely exhausted from the morning battle. As is common with medieval battles, losses are difficult to assess with precision. The Christian chroniclers claim that Saladin's force lost about 7,000 men, but it is possible that the true number may have been fewer. Ambroise mentions that Richard's troops counted several thousand bodies of dead Saracen soldiers on the field of battle after the retreat. King Richard's own dead are said to have numbered no more than 700.